Welcome to another episode of Speaker Sponsor, where we bring you the people behind the scenes of the speaking industry. The meeting planners, the speakers bureaus, the managers, the agents, and the experts who have the inside scoop to help you educate, motivate, and inspire as a public speaker. And without further ado, here's your host, Julie Austin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Speaker Sponsor for the entrepreneurial speaker. My name is Julie Austin, and today's guest is a best-selling author of, hold it up, Become a Bookable Speaker, and an unparalleled authority on corporate speakers and entertainment. With over 25 years of experience, she's booked over $40 million in speaking fees and transformed unknown talent into speaking giants. She's the founder and CEO of Bookable Speakers and C Agency, an award-winning speaker management firm known for its innovative consultative approach and two-time Inc. 5000 recognition. Her career highlights include booking industry legends and launching countless speakers from no name to Hall of Fame. A trailblazer in the events industry, she's the only agent with Events Industry Council preferred provider status, a recipient of the IASB Dottie Walters Helping Hand Award, and a true pioneer with a background in music and comedy. Please welcome the dynamic agent, manager, and speaker therapist, Christa Haberstock.
Where's the giant applause from the crowd? That was a tongue twister. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it was. So, speaker therapist.
Oh, yes.
You must be very busy.
Yeah, and I have to cut them off right at 60 minutes, crying or not, it's over. They got to just schedule for the next one until next time.
Because speakers we're artistes and, we like the hand-holding and, I don't know, we're different.
Yes, well, definitely. I would say speakers are very different, but in an unbelievable way. Like, you can't not unsee things in this industry. Like, people who get into the speaking industry as agents or managers, or, even as speakers, it's incomparable. This industry, there's nothing like it. And so my consultation is kind of tongue-in-cheek called speaker therapy, because, it's a pretty short walk from, well, hi, who are you? And what do you speak about? Well, why do you speak about that? Well, I don't know. Who are you? I don't know. And it turns into an existential crisis. So my consultation is very tongue-in-cheek called therapy, but it's a short walk from consultation to therapy in my position.
Well, we've been connected on LinkedIn for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And our first conversation was very brief and very...
to the point?
Yeah, I'll say that. Harsh? That's okay. Because I
don't dance around. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
And I don't want it sugar-coated.
Good. Most people don't.
I can get that from anybody. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're wonderful. Mm-hmm. No, this sucks, and tell me why,
Well, and I know that the speakers that I talk to, they don't want to stay the same. They want to get better, because just by nature, that's what speakers want. They want to improve. They want to advance their careers. They're just by nature people who want to excel at what they're doing. And I think that speakers get enough standing ovations. They don't need another one from me. I think they want the truth, right?
Right. And I think I completely redid my website. You saw something about it that I didn't see. And we're too close to it, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it's very early in the interview to give you my favorite quote recently, but you can't see the label. You cannot read the label from inside the jar. And you speakers, man, you're all inside the jar, and we're on the outside as buyers and sellers and representatives saying, like, would you like to hear from us on it? So I think just anyone on the outside, but especially someone with a trained eye, is really critically important.
We need to hear that. Mm-hmm. I remember one of your quotes was, I can spot a great speaker at 20 paces, blindfolded, and 3 drinks in.
Yeah.
Being that it takes the brain 7 seconds to form a first impression, what do you see about a speaker in that very first impression?
Gosh, I'm starting to, and this is a different answer than I've ever given to a question like that, honestly. I'm starting to really trust my intuition, gut instinct, more than ever, because there's the 10,000 hour genius thing, and there's the muscle memory. Like, having done this for, I'm in my third decade, pushing 30 years of this, you just develop like a sixth sense. And so as far as a great speaker, I can spot, well, obviously if you're watching someone speak, you can tell if they're a great speaker on stage, if they're good. But it really boils down to authenticity, and that's something I think a person feels from another person. It isn't necessarily, it's just not the science of authenticity, because if you know them off stage, they got to be the same on stage. I have plenty of speakers, and it's really the speakers that I work with closely on my roster that are the ones that are the most cohesive in what they say on stage and how they act off stage. So to me, that's a bookable speaker. That's a great speaker. That's someone who deserves to be holding the microphone, in my humble opinion, and is destined for greatness, because I think that if you're authentic and believe in what you're doing and your mission, then that's your calling, and your calling can't be stopped.
I used to work in the entertainment industry. Okay. So I started when I was 14. I started making a living at it when I was 16, and then went on many years later into writing, producing, distribution, development executive. I've done casting and everything. So the casting part was interesting, because you said you could instantly tell, like your gut instinct. I could tell if I wanted to hire someone before they auditioned.
Yep. For sure. That's exactly right. Well, you have that firsthand experience too. It's, and I mean, like it or not, I don't even need to see a person's video, a speaker's video, before I know if they have potential or not. There's so much to just I can tell so much from even just a headshot. It's very strange. Like, and I'm sure you could too, casting. You could, like, the headshot makes you go, oh, okay, there's something about them that makes me want to see more or read more. And, or it could be the headline, or it could be the bio, or it could be just an interview clip, or it could be just someone saying something about someone and say, that's really interesting. And so then when you dig just a little bit deeper, if you find below the surface what's on top of the surface, then I think that's as far as you need to go to say, this is worth exploring.
Yeah, I mean, the entertainment industry is very similar.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah, you have a good context, I'd say, for everything that I talk about speakers. And in fact, I'm sorry to step on you, but that is like, it's the music industry, entertainment industry, and having some experience in the music industry as a musician, and having like pursued, becoming like my rock star dreams before, got married and then had a kid. And, they're not really a big market for a pregnant 32-year-old in the, in the music industry to break in.
That's over the hill?
It was over the hill.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's right. Way too maternal for what I was trying to do. But really enjoyed that. But really learned a ton about what it takes to be just, to be good in an industry where someone is relying on you for their show.
Right.
And for your show, for casting like a TV or a movie, for their show, their concert or their tour or their show, like their event, that, the client is counting on you.
Speaking of age.
Yes.
Is there a cutoff age? Because I've known speakers in their 90s.
Yes, I love that. That is, isn't it so awesome?
Today, what's your thinking? There's no
hasn't
limit?
Changed. No, I am, listen, there is probably no bigger advocate for the legacy speaker than this person right here. I think the more reps you have on stage, the more credibility you have, the more right you have to be holding the microphone. So I'm a big advocate. Like my whole Bookable Speakers brand, not necessarily the book, but I think to some degree the book supports it. But I run events for established and legacy speakers to make sure they are keeping up with the modern market. The speakers who launched, the emerging speakers in 2020, like everything past, let's say 2018, in that technologically advanced market, you can launch very quickly and look very seasoned if you're not, even if you're not, right?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well, I know. I see slick websites and slick videos.
It's easier and cheaper than ever, and you can do it yourself. I mean, I make websites for different things that I'm doing all the time, and it's gotten easier and easier and easier. So the barrier to entry to look like a seasoned speaker is way down on the ground. So I'm a huge advocate of the legacy speakers, the established and legacy speakers who've been doing it for, let's say, 10 years. They kind of came out before it was so easy access, speaker in a box, quick startup speaker. I want them to be the ones getting those bookings. And so for me, bookable speakers and bookable speakers events are for that group. And so it's like a niche of a niche of a niche.
I've been doing it 15 years.
Okay.
So, and a lot has changed
And
just in 15 years.
and keeping up is hard. I mean, yeah. And so on the buyer side, seller side, because I'm a speaker manager, I have to sell my speakers to buyers. And so it's my job every day to make sure I'm on the cutting edge of what's selling and what's not. And it's very hard as a speaker to do it all. So that's why I want to be that resource for the established and legacy speakers.
I've always been my own agent.
Yeah.
From the time I was a teenager. Once I had a manager.
Okay.
That's like in all the years of my entire life. Once I had a manager. And the only reason I had a manager was because I was already working. And he came to the set and said, "You took a job from my actor."
That's the best way for a speaker to get discovered, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, so many parallels. Well, and that's what management is. Usually you come alongside, a busy speaker and you say, like, let me help you just go do what you can be awesome at. And, we'll take the inbound leads and we'll take that and we'll keep an eye on your brand for you. And listen, the speaker has to be actively involved. It's a partnership. And I always tell the speakers when I sign them, I go, okay, your challenge, my admonishment to you is to outrun me. Try and outrun me. And in my, 15 years of representing speakers, no one has yet, because I work harder than any of the speakers I've worked with. As far as pushing and advocating, it's 24/7, this crazy job.
So are you a manager or agent?
So this is where we divert from the entertainment, from the music industry. So you have your 10 percenters.
Right, right.
Right. And so the 10 percenters are the agents who book the deals, and then 10% managers. Is there another 10% too from the entertainment side?
Well, a manager can take, in the entertainment industry, can take 20, 30%.
Okay, right. Okay.
And an agent takes their 10%. But usually what I found is the agent never did anything.
Oh, how interesting.
Never. That's why I said I don't need one.
Yeah.
The manager, I said, I'd rather pay you 20 or 25%, whatever it was.
So in that case, it's kind of like the speaking industry. So, and not in the agents not doing any work, because, so the speakers bureaus on our side, speakers bureaus call themselves agents. And, they
do work.
And they do work.
Business.
They work very, very hard for their deals.
Do work.
I know. Yeah. So I'm like, no, that's not how it is. Yeah. And I spent 10 years as a speakers bureau agent, so I know very well how hard it is. So we're kind of both. Like I call myself a manager and an agent because I'm 100% of both. So I manage their speaking career, and I also make sure that I take care of all their deals for them. And it's a nice marriage, honestly, because speakers don't know what they don't know. And also, I don't think any talent, respectfully, I don't think any talent should be negotiating their own deals. I think creating any kind of buffer between the speaker, the talent, between the buyer is just inherently going to go more smoothly. You're going to get more money. Yeah. And if you have a competent agent/manager doing that, it's going to increase your income just inherently by that.
Well, the fee thing, I just remember reading in your book, it started at $10,000.
Okay.
Is that still the case, that a speaker bureau agent manager won't take anyone under 10,000?
I don't mean to be cut and dried on this. I'd say if there's a bell curve,
because you got to take a percentage.
Yeah,
so.
Right. And so I know one in particular speaker booking guy. I guess he would be a bureau. I'm not sure what he calls himself. He has been in the industry literally for decades, and I think like 5 decades. He's been doing this forever. He used to be a speaker himself. He will take the low end bookings, and he's like the king of the low end bookings. He'll do that, but he's kind of a one-off. He's a lone ranger because no one else does it. And he's like, well, I can own that quadrant and do it.
Is he in North Carolina?
I don't know where he is now. I do know he likes to do karaoke.
Might be the same person.
Might be the same person.
Because I'm looking at it going, that's going to be a lot of work.
It is, but I think he loves it. So,
Yeah.
But for the most part, listen, I think bureaus going below 5,000 would be really hard because you're not going to really,
Make any money.
make a lot. So the
Right.
most established bureaus are going to be booking speakers in the 10,000 and up. There are outliers to that, but I would say if you're looking at kind of the top of the bell curve, most bureaus are going to do $10,000 and up.
What's interesting to me is that sometimes this whole fee thing,
Yeah.
I'm always looking, okay, this person's a $20,000 speaker, but then I know the meeting planner, they're a friend of mine, and they said, oh yeah, we hired him a few months ago for $1,000. And I went, really?
Uh-huh.
Wait a minute, his fee is $20,000.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy to speak to that. So so there are varying degrees. That's what we're referring to right now as fee integrity, right?
Right.
So, and integrity, I don't love that word because it implies some kind of moral character or moral compass. I'm like, no, it's, if I wanted to book myself, if I wanted to book a speaking engagement for myself, because I do those every once in a while, or a consulting call, or if I want to onboard a speaker and charge them XYZ for the onboarding, or if I want to negotiate, that's my business. Like, I can do what I want to do because at the end of the day, it's my value, it's my money, it's whatever I feel like I want to and can charge. So that has nothing to do with character. That has to do with me saying, does this make sense for me? Does this make sense for my family? Does this make sense for my bottom line? Speakers can do that too. Where it gets tricky is when, just like you said, there is the fee is part of the brand. So if you know, and you said a $20,000 speaker, and I think that's really interesting because that is how we refer to them, right? A $20,000 speaker. What? Like, shouldn't you say a leadership speaker who sometimes gets $20,000? But
Right.
No, but we don't. We say he's a $20,000 speaker. So that implies that the fee is part of his brand, which it is, or hers, whatever it is. So when you hear something different, you think, oh, that's incongruent with his brand. So what has to happen, in my opinion, like the brand altar is very high for me. It's a very big deal. So if you're going to sacrifice something, make sure that the event planner knows non-disclosure. Do not talk about this. There are different points of value for me to do this, and that's nobody's business but between you and I. So I advise speakers, and in my contracts, I have it in red letters. I'm like, this will nullify this agreement should this fee be disclosed because special negotiations were involved. And just while we're on the topic of fee, this is a bit of a side thing. Because fee is such a big, important part of your brand, you better be sure if you are a $20,000 speaker that your brand also says, I'm a $20,000 speaker. Because if your brand says, I'm a $5,000 speaker and your fee is $20,000, that's white noise, and it'll be a huge barrier to booking. You'll never get those leads. They'll say, oh, $20,000, and wow, like that doesn't make sense. Do they not like speaking? Do they don't want to do it? Or do they think too much of themselves? Or, so there's the congruency between the fee and the brand is very important.
Speaking of think too much of themselves, in your book, there's you talk about the action figure trap.
Yes.
And like I said, I come from Hollywood. It's full of egos,
Yes.
just like the speaking industry. Mm-hmm. Everybody's a world-renowned, best-selling, blah, blah, blah. So when I was on the casting side, I didn't want to work with divas. I didn't want to hire them.
Yeah.
And word got around.
Yeah.
There are some actors, I could tell you many stories.
When the cameras are off, I'm going to make you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's not just my story.
Okay.
It happened a lot. Sure. So they know. They know they're divas. But what's your thinking on that as far as staying humble but being confident?
Mm-hmm. There's,
Because it's kind of a fine line.
it is, yeah. And I mean, I have actually given this a lot of thought because I care very deeply about the speakers that I represent and that I work with. I just care deeply about people, honestly. And I've seen speakers that started, humble and just so grateful for, every event and every speaking fee and every opportunity to have an impact and actually share their story or share what they learned, and gets too many standing ovations and start to believe them.
Believe the press.
Yeah. And that's where it gets very sad. I've seen marriages fall apart with speakers who start to believe their own standing ovations. Sure.
Wow.
Well, because you get home and it's like, you don't get a standing ovation. You get an ultimatum, like, take out the trash. That's what you get when you get home. Or, it's like the dogs are up in the living room again. You're up. It's like, oh man. So, and it can be jarring. So I encourage a few things to that. I encourage speakers to remember that the standing ovation is not for them. It's for the person who hired them, the person who put their neck on the line to bring them in. That audience is thanking them for however they feel, whatever they learned, but it's not a you or I God,
Right?
And I get speakers to, and it's kind of semi-related, but I really encourage my speakers to figure out how many events is enough. And that's not a popular sentiment. I really encourage my speakers, like, this is a very well-paid industry. And if you're making $10, $15, $20, $25, $30, $35,000 per presentation, is 50 of those a year enough? Or do you really need 100? And I guess
It's about having a balanced life, sort of.
yes, because I have seen too much of these things turn into an imbalance. I am not casting aspersions on anybody who chooses the 125 a year. I could name a speaker right now who takes his wife on every event, to every event, because he's an empty nester, and he takes his wife, and he does 125 a year. And by the way, for whatever fee he wants to, because he loves speaking and he just loves the transformation that can happen. But then he gets to travel the world with his wife. And I think, okay, good. There you go. There's a nice balance. But I just don't like the marriages that fall apart, the kids that don't know their parents. And I mean, on the altar of what? So
I just got married 4 months ago. I'm not worried about 100 speaking gigs,
Yeah,
but
that's
I'll
right.
cross that bridge when I get to it.
yes, and let's hope you do. Let's hope you're faced with that. Just raise your fee high enough. You only have to do 50.
Wanted to touch on something else that you are that you talk about a lot in the book, and that's finding your obvious advantage.
My favorite topic.
Which I'm really surprised sometimes when a speaker will say, oh, I go, what do you speak on? Leadership. Okay. What have you led? Well, nothing, but it's a hot topic. Mm-hmm. And they'll pick a hot topic, and I go, okay, let's dig into your background. And all of a sudden, I start seeing things, and I go, why are you not talking about this?
There you go.
That's amazing. Don't be like everybody else.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. What's the reason you pick up the microphone in the first place? What gives you the authority to talk about this in the first place? Do you talk about leadership in terms of corporate culture? Because that's also kind of underneath that. And why would you talk about corporate culture? Is it because maybe that you have an anthropology degree, a background, and you lived with the pygmies and you learned all about their culture and fitting in, and ended up you had to lead, some kind of humanitarian. There's always something behind it. There's like it is just so interesting to me that everybody all the speakers I talk to, you can't read the label from inside the jar. The obvious advantage is it's almost like the biggest blind spot for speakers, because it's so normal, because they're on the inside and they're like, well, of course I did that. I know I came out of humble beginnings as a Haitian refugee, but yeah, it was hard. But anyway, now I'm doing this. I'm like, what?
Exactly.
Could we talk more about that first part again? Because I don't know a single person I've ever talked to that came, and I would guarantee that if in 100 audiences you get two or three people who've ever experienced that, that would be amazing. So that's their obvious advantage. No, their advantage is seeing the world through someone's eyes who has lived and grown up through something like that. And like your obvious advantage is so obvious to me and to everyone around, but it's because you have this entertainment background. And, you know, flip it on me. It took me forever to actually see my own obvious advantage that I have been pulling, ironically, it's full circle. I've been pulling the obvious advantage out of incredible people for the last 30 years. I've been helping them see the greatest parts of themselves. And it's helped them, it's propelled their careers because then they can live authentically on stage and tell their stories and, you know, say what they've learned from that. But it's a wild experience, like talking to Olympians who say, well, we can touch on the gold medal thing, but I kind of want to go beyond that. And I go, no. That's what's getting you in the door. Like, you know, it's like, the guy who wrote American Pie not playing American Pie.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm clearly passionate about it, but it's, you know, everybody's got, you know, everybody's a special snowflake. That's not what I'm saying, but
No, but everybody has something in their background, in their work history, in their life experience
that makes them know
special,
something
unique,
different
that
we need to know.
Right.
And that's where I think purpose and calling come from. I think it's very cool. It was a very cool discovery for me to say, what is my obvious advantage? It's like finding the obvious advantage in people. In all these incredible people over the years and seeing them just go to great heights in their careers. It's a rush. It's where I find my flow state, as they say.
I thought my special advantage was being an inventor, because being a woman inventor, there are only 4% of women in the world have a sole patent owner.
Okay.
4%.
What did you invent?
Wrist water bottle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Where's mine?
I didn't think to bring. See, I'm so close to it.
Yeah.
People go, you're a what? So a lot of people don't even know an inventor. There's so few of us.
So interesting. I know everybody's got such weird stuff, man. I mean, that's weird. Respectfully.
Inventors are weird.
Oh, okay.
Weirder than speakers or actors.
Wow. That's saying a lot.
I know. So where do you think the future of the speaking industry is headed?
Storytelling has been around since the dawn of man. I mean, it's not going anywhere, which is great. The speaking industry as a whole there's been major disruptors in the supply chain, distribution channels, everything in the last probably 5-6 years. So that's a whole other conversation. But the speaking industry, like more than anything right now, people crave connection. So the events industry as a whole, with speakers as a part of it, I think it's poised for growth. I mean, all metrics, like there's studies from PCMA and studies from, I can't remember all the other ones, but I know PCMA was one. Anyway, yeah, it's going to grow exponentially in the next 12 or 20, so in the next year and a half. And speakers as a part of that, I think because we crave connection, event professionals are really prioritizing somehow engagement. Engagement is really important. You know, we started a couple years ago with employee engagement, you know, the quiet quitting. And so employers were looking to engage their employees.
Which is flipped, by the way.
Oh, really? Tell me.
Oh, yeah. So it always does.
Yeah.
It's an employer's market. Now it's an employee's market.
Yeah.
Now, because returned to the office, now it's becoming the employer's market.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, engagement in both directions, I guess. So the engagement is really important for event planners, and it has been for a while, but even more so. And so I see it going there. The trends are evergreen, like speakers, topics. You're never going to get away from motivation, inspiration, thankfully. You know, that's the core, that's the heartbeat of the storyteller is motivation, inspiration. Leadership, we've already referenced it several times, so that's always going to be around. Innovation is a big one, actually. You're just
always going to have innovation.
Innovation is a very big one, Julie.
Yep.
So, and especially like it's making the top 5 this year. Innovation, creativity. I think in no small part because of AI and technology.
Yep.
disruption, because of all that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff is, AI and technology and all the things we have to learn. And I think adaptability and resilience is one that will never go away as well. So, I think those are pretty evergreen topics, but they just kind of shift.
As long as we're not replaced by robots.
Yeah, no, I think the human element is just so much more important because so much can be automated.
Right.
And it's a great thing. It's saving us tons of time.
Well, I want you to let everyone know where to find you.
Okay.
And also you can find Christa's book on our resource page. And what's your website? Where do people go?
Well, I'm going to spin the wheel on my websites, and you can find me on one of my 3 websites. I have first name, last name. So it's ChristaHaberstock.com. And that's where I really lean into the obvious advantage for not just speakers and not just event professionals, but just for anybody. So ChristaHaberstock.com. I also have BookableSpeakers.com. If you're established or a legacy speaker, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe join one of our events. And then C Agency is my agency for my incredible speakers that I represent and have represented for some of them for decades. So I'd love to see you at any of those places and to reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and join us again next time for Speaker Sponsor. Thank you.